Marcus is 23 years old. He makes $63,000 a year fixing wind turbines in Iowa. On paper, that sounds like the kind of trade school success story people love to throw around online. But the part people don't see is what that money asks for in return. Marcus, when you told me, the money is good, the loneliness isn't, I felt that immediately. Start there.
Yeah, I'm 23. I make 63 grand fixing wind turbines in Iowa. And if you'd told 17-year-old me that, I would have thought I was rich. I grew up hearing grown men say they'd kill to make that kind of money before 25. So for a while, I walked around like I had won something. But there are nights when I get back from a turbine, or I get back to some apartment or hotel room, and it's so quiet it almost rings in your ears. You realize real fast a decent paycheck can make your life look full, while it actually gets smaller. That's the part nobody puts in the caption.
That is such a brutal sentence. Your life can look full while it gets smaller. Because people hear 63 grand in Iowa, and they assume you've got breathing room, you've got freedom, you've got this stable adult life figured out. What does that number actually feel like once it lands in your account, and you start living inside the job?
It feels good. And then it feels very regular, very fast. After taxes, insurance, all that, I'm bringing home around $3,900 a month, give or take, depending on overtime and what came out that pay period. My one bedroom on the west side of Des Moines is around $850, which is honestly not bad compared to a lot of the country, and that's part of why people say Iowa's a cheat code. But then it's truck payment, gas, food, work clothes, random stuff you buy because you're too tired to plan anything right. And with this job, tired costs money. You eat gas station food because you're cooked. You pay for convenience because you're never fully home in your own head. So yeah, I am ahead compared to some friends, but it doesn't feel like this luxurious thing. It feels like I get paid enough to stay in the game.
That's important context. The national pay for wind techs is right around where you are, so you're not exaggerating the upside. This is a real paycheck and a real growing trade. But BLS also says you guys are outdoors, up high, in tight spaces, and on call. So take me back a little. You're 23 now. How does a kid that age end up saying, yeah, I'm going to go climb wind turbines in Iowa for a living?
Honestly, debt scared me more than heights did. I wasn't one of those kids who had some dream career since kindergarten. I just knew I didn't want to leave school with 50 grand hanging on my neck and no idea what I was doing. I did the wind turbine certificate through DMAC in Ankeny after high school because it was practical, close enough, and it felt like one of those jobs where if you showed up and weren't soft, there was a lane for you. My dad did industrial maintenance for years, so I grew up around guys who fixed things and came home with grease in the lines of their hands. That made sense to me. And I'll be honest, the first time they got us up on training towers, I loved it. Not in some crazy adrenaline junkie way, it just felt clean up there. No emails, no fake meetings. Something's wrong, you find it, you fix it, or you don't. I liked how honest that felt.
There is something almost pure about that. The machine either works or it doesn't. But the romantic version of this job is probably way nicer than the lived version. So give me the real day. Not the brochure, not the recruiting pitch. Your alarm goes off. Then what?
My alarm is usually around 4:15 if I'm on a normal site day. I'm half awake, throwing on thermals if it's winter, grabbing coffee that barely tastes like coffee, and I'm on the road while most people are still dead asleep. The drive west can actually be kind of beautiful if the sky is clear. Then you get there and it's all business. Harness, PPE, tooling, work orders, lockout, tag out, making sure you're not being casual with stuff that can absolutely hurt or kill you. Some turbines have service lifts and some days those lifts are down, so now you're climbing. And people hear climbing and think it's this one cool moment. No, man, it's sweat in your shirt by sunrise. It's hydraulic smell, grease, metal, wind pushing against the tower, your knees knocking on rung after rung when you're already carrying the day in your head. Then you get up there and you're troubleshooting electrical, mechanical, hydraulic, whatever the machine decided to become that day. And by the time you come down, you still have paperwork because apparently even sky jobs end in a laptop.
That line is too real. Even sky jobs end in a laptop. So where does the loneliness actually show up? Because a lot of trades are hard, a lot of jobs are physical, a lot of people wake up early. But not every job leaves a 23-year-old talking the way you're talking.
The loneliness isn't really in the climb. The climb is too loud in your body for that. The loneliness shows up in the spaces after. It's sitting in your truck after a long day and realizing nobody's texted you anything that isn't practical. It's getting home and your apartment feels like a storage unit with a bed in it. It's seeing your friends on Instagram at somebody's birthday, somebody's bar patio, somebody's lake day, and you don't even resent them. You just feel separate from regular life. My family still does Sunday dinners a lot when schedules line up, and there were stretches where my mom would text me a picture of the table because she knew I wasn't making it. That's a weird feeling, being loved and missed in the same message. And then on the relationship side, it gets ugly fast if you're not careful. You're tired, you're distracted, your windows for connection get small, and the person on the other end starts feeling like they're competing with weather, outages, and a machine they can't even picture.
You said something there I don't want to let slide. You said the relationship side gets ugly fast. That sounds specific. Was there somebody in the middle of all this when the job started becoming your whole life?
Yeah, Alyssa, we dated the last year of high school and then on and off after that, but really together for a little over 2 years. She knew what the job was on paper. She was proud of me, which almost made it worse because I could hide behind that. I'd tell myself, I'm doing what a man is supposed to do. I'm working, I'm building something, I'm getting ahead. And all of that was technically true. But there were nights she'd want to talk about something real, like where we were headed, whether we'd move in together, whether I could be present enough to build a life. And I'd be so smoked I would just give these flat answers. Not mean, just absent. That's a different kind of hurt, I think. Not yelling, not cheating, just being somewhere between physically there and emotionally gone.
That's powerful, because it's not a villain story. It's slower than that. It's a drift. But I also hear you protecting yourself a little with this provider language. I'm doing what a man is supposed to do. Let me press on that. Were you providing, or were you hiding inside being the hardworking guy?
Both. That's the honest answer. I was definitely providing for myself in a way I hadn't before, and I liked that. I liked not having to ask my parents for help. I liked picking up a check and feeling ahead of people my age. I liked buying a truck and acting like that meant I'd become somebody solid. But yeah, there was hiding in it too. Because if you're the guy with the hard job, people excuse a lot. They excuse you being tired. They excuse you canceling. They excuse you not opening up. They almost admire the very thing that's making you unavailable. And I leaned on that more than I should have. There were times overtime wasn't even about the money. It was about having an excuse. If I'm still out there, I don't have to sit with what I'm not doing well down here.
That's where this gets really human. Because now it's not just trade work is hard. It's that the job can become a mask that even good people start living behind. Was there a moment where the whole thing cracked for you? Where it stopped being abstract and got undeniable?
Yeah, February, last winter. I can still feel that day in my chest if I think about it too long. We were dealing with a fault on a turbine outside Greenfield after a nasty cold snap, and the lift was down, so we were climbing. Everything already felt harder because the cold gets into your hands different when you're working metal. You stay focused because you have to. Lock out, confirm, troubleshoot, all that. And my phone had been buzzing in my jacket, but you don't just stop and check life whenever you feel like it up there. When we finally got to a point where I could look, I had 6 missed calls from my mom. 6. That number by itself tells you something is wrong. I called her back from inside the nacelle and she was crying so hard I could barely understand her. My grandpa had collapsed in his driveway.
Oh man.
Yeah, and the part I still can't fully make peace with is how trapped I felt. Because you're hundreds of feet up, the weather's garbage, you're in procedure, and your body knows there is no fast version of getting back to the ground safely. So while my mom is crying, I'm still clipping, moving, descending, following the rules that are supposed to keep me alive, and every second feels evil. I remember my hand shaking so bad on the ladder I had to stop and breathe because panicking up there just creates a second emergency. By the time I got down, got in the truck, and started heading east, my aunt called and told me he was gone. I kept driving anyway because I didn't know what else to do. I just remember the fields looking huge and empty and mean, and I had this thought I hated. I was up keeping a machine running while my family was losing a person. That's the day the loneliness stopped being poetic and got personal.
That is devastating. And what makes it worse is there isn't even an obvious person to blame in that moment. Safety protocol isn't wrong. Your mom wasn't wrong. The job wasn't fake. but the cost was still real. So when you say this changed something in you, what changed?
I think before that day, I still believed I could outwork consequences. Like if I was disciplined enough, if I made enough, if I stayed tough enough, maybe I could keep all the plates spinning. Job, family, girlfriend, friends, future, whatever. After that day, I understood in a much uglier way that life doesn't wait for your schedule to clear. People get sick while you're on a tower. Relationships thin out while you're chasing the next check. Your own heart can go kind of numb while you're being praised for being dependable. I started looking at my calendar different after that. Not because I became wise overnight. I didn't. I still went back to work. I still did overtime. But something was broken in the fantasy that money and grit automatically make a good life.
And yet, you stayed. That's the part people listening are going to wrestle with. Because if the job was there when your relationship started to erode, and the job was there when your grandpa died, and the job carries real safety risk, why didn't you walk?
Because that's not how it feels from inside it. From the outside, people go, dude, just quit. From the inside, it's rent, it's identity, it's health insurance. It's the fact that you're actually good at something difficult, which matters more than people think. And there's pride too, real pride. When a turbine is down and your crew gets it back online, there is this satisfaction that's hard to explain without sounding corny. You know you did something tangible. You know you earned your place. Plus, after my grandpa died, part of me almost doubled down because I didn't know what else to do with grief except stay moving. Work gives you instructions. Grief doesn't. So I stayed because the job was hurting me. And because the job was also one of the only places I knew exactly who I was.
That contradiction is probably the whole story right there. The place that drains you is also the place that gives you shape. Let's widen this out. Beyond the big tragedy moments, what are the hidden costs that never make it into the recruiting pitch?
The little erosions, man, that's what gets you. Everybody imagines the big dramatic danger, which is real, but the little erosions are what change you. Your sleep gets weird because you're always half on alert. Your body gets used to waking up before your mind is ready, then it forgets how to fully relax. You get off work and you're too tired to call people back. Then after enough of that, they stop expecting a call. Dating starts to feel like you're auditioning to convince someone your schedule won't swallow them, even though you know sometimes it will. Mentally, I got more shut down than I realized. Less curious, less warm, more transactional. There were weeks where my whole personality was basically, how bad was the fault? How long was the climb? When's the next dispatch? That's not a full human being. That's a very efficient employee.
You keep slipping into this thing where you say it clean, and then you say it harsher. And the harsher version always feels truer. That's not a full human being. That's a very efficient employee. Did anyone around you notice you changing before you did?
My mom did. Moms always know first. She'd say little stuff like, you sound tired in your soul, not just your body. I used to laugh that off because it sounded dramatic, but she was right. Alyssa definitely noticed. My younger brother noticed in a different way. He started joking that he needed an appointment to see me, which is funny until you realize he's not really joking. Even my buddies would say I had become hard to pin down, and not in some cool grown man way. More like I was always there physically for an hour and gone mentally after 20 minutes. I think the hardest thing to admit is that people don't always leave because they hate you. Sometimes they leave because they can't keep having a relationship with a ghost.
That's the line. Because loneliness isn't just being alone. Sometimes it's becoming harder and harder to be reached by the people who actually love you. Let me ask you something a little uncomfortable. In all this sacrifice talk, what did you do wrong? Not what happened to you. What choices did you make badly?
I confused earning with maturity. That's probably the biggest one. I thought because I made decent money and worked a hard job, that automatically meant I was becoming a solid man. But I was still avoiding hard conversations, still bad at balance, still using exhaustion as a shield. I judged other people too, if I'm being really honest. I had this smug thing in me where I'd look at friends making less money or working jobs I thought were easier, and I'd think I was more serious than them. That's ugly, but it was there. I also let some important days slide because I assumed there'd be another one. My sister had a birthday dinner I missed because I took an extra call out. My mom covered for me. She always does. But that doesn't mean it didn't hurt. I hurt people while telling myself I was doing the responsible thing. That's a hard sentence to own, but it's true.
I respect you for saying it that directly. Because now you're not a symbol, you're a person. and people trust a person more than a message. So let me flip it. What do you actually love about the work? The part that still makes you light up even after everything you just said.
I love mornings on a clear day when the sky starts turning before the rest of the world feels awake. I love the first second you step out up top and the land looks almost fake because it stretches so far and flat and quiet. I love solving a problem with your hands and your head at the same time. I love good crews. When everybody knows their role, nobody's trying to act like a hero, and the whole thing just clicks. I love that the job is physical without being mindless. And I do like what it's for. I know people get cynical about all industries, but there is something cool about helping keep power on through equipment people rarely think about. The job can be brutal, but it is not meaningless. That's why it's so hard to talk about honestly. If I hated it, this would actually be simpler.
That makes complete sense. The painful jobs are often the ones with just enough meaning and pride to keep you from leaving when you should. You mentioned crews there. A lot of the worker testimony I looked at said this life can feel very different depending on the site and the manager. Some places are solid, some are understaffed, some grind people down. How true is that?
It's completely true. People talk about the wind industry like it's one thing, but your actual life can hinge on one site manager and whether your crew is squared away. A good site feels demanding but sane. You have structure, decent communication, people care about safety for real instead of just in emails, and long days stay occasional. A bad site feels like everybody is always one outage behind and one tech short. Then the mood changes. Corners don't always get cut in some dramatic movie way, but pressure gets heavier. On-call starts messing with your head. You stop trusting the schedule. You're doing the physical job and the emotional job of bracing for whatever's about to break next. So yeah, management matters a ton. The same title can feel like a career or like a slow leak depending on where you're parked.
That's a huge distinction. Because then the conversation isn't just, can young men handle hard work? It's also, what kind of systems are we dropping them into? Let me come back to the money one more time. You make about the national median for the occupation, and in Iowa that goes further than in a lot of states. But with everything you've described, is the money actually compensating you? Or is it just making the sacrifice easier to justify?
Mostly the second one. The money matters, don't get me wrong. If I was doing all this for trash pay, I'd be out. But money has this weird ability to make you narrate your own suffering in a more flattering way. You stop saying, I'm lonely, and start saying, I'm disciplined. You stop saying, I'm missing my life, and start saying, I'm getting ahead. On paper, I'm okay. I'm not starving. My rent is manageable. I'm putting some money away. I can help with stuff if my family needs it. That matters. But if you're asking whether the paycheck alone balances the emotional math, no, not by itself. Because what wears on you isn't always bill-shaped. Sometimes it's sitting in your place after a 14-hour day with enough money for takeout and nobody to eat it with. That's not a budgeting problem.
That's one of the sharpest things you've said. That's not a budgeting problem. So what did the loneliness start doing to your mind? Not in a dramatic internet way, but in the actual day-to-day mental health sense.
I got flatter. That's the best word for it. Not crying every night, not spiraling every second, just flatter. Less excited for things, less responsive. I'd come home and sit in the dark longer than I needed to before turning lights on. I'd watch dumb videos because they required nothing from me. I stopped reaching out first. And there were moments where I could tell I was using fatigue almost like anesthesia. As long as I stayed tired enough, I didn't have to think too hard about whether I was happy. I started talking to a therapist a few months after my grandpa died because I didn't like who I was becoming. Even making that appointment embarrassed me at first, which is stupid now that I look back on it. But that's how a lot of guys are raised. We think if we're still functioning, we're fine. Functioning is a low bar, man. A forklift functions.
A forklift functions. That's dark and funny and painfully true. And I'm glad you brought up therapy because a lot of men in hard trades still hear that and think it means weakness. Did it help? Or did it mostly just give you another place to say the same stuff out loud?
It helped because somebody was finally making me separate facts from stories. The fact is I have a demanding job. The story I was telling was that the demanding job made me noble, and that if I was hurting, that somehow proved I was doing life correctly. That's nonsense, but it was powerful nonsense. Therapy made me look at patterns, why I overvalued being needed, why money felt like proof, why rest almost made me uncomfortable. I realized I wasn't only lonely because of the schedule. I was lonely because I had built a life where usefulness came easier than closeness. That's a rough mirror, but once you see it, you can't really unsee it.
That's where I want to push you a little. Because you've described the industry well, you've described the schedule well, but what you just said tells me the deepest part of this might not be the turbines at all. It might be that the job found a weakness in you and rewarded it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The job didn't invent my stuff. It gave my stuff a uniform and a paycheck. It rewarded me for being self-contained. It rewarded me for pushing through. It rewarded me for staying busy and not needing much, at least not visibly. And those traits can look admirable until they start eating your relationships. So when I say the loneliness isn't worth it, I don't mean the industry is evil and every wind tech is miserable. I mean, if you already have a part of you that confuses isolation with strength, this kind of work can feed that part until it runs your whole life. That's what happened to me for a while.
You told our producer something happened last week that kind of forced all of this into the present tense again. Not a memory, not a lesson, but a decision. What happened?
I got offered a promotion path, more money, more responsibility, more travel. If I take it, I can probably push into the low 80s pretty fast with the extra days and the kind of work it is. A year ago, maybe even 6 months ago, I would have said yes before the sentence was finished. That's the dream in a lot of young guy brains. Make more, move up, be the dude they trust with the hard stuff. But my little brother graduates next year and he straight up asked me, "Are you actually going to be around now, or are you just going to keep saying maybe?" And that hit me harder than the offer excited me. Because that's the question now. Not, can I make more? I probably can. The question is, what am I willing to miss in exchange?
That's an incredible pivot point. Because now the story isn't just about what the job took. It's about whether you're going to keep consenting to the same trade. Where are you leaning, honestly?
Honestly, I'm leaning towards saying no, which still messes with my ego a little because younger me would have called that stupid. There's a part of me that hears 80-something grand at 23 and wants to chase it just to prove I can. But I keep thinking about how fast life moves when you're only living in shifts. My brother will graduate once. My mom won't always keep setting a place at the table like it's automatic. And if I keep treating relationships like they can wait until I hit some magic income number, I'm going to wake up with a nicer bank account and a thinner life. I don't want to do that. Not again.
That's not a small thing to say, especially as a young guy in a culture that basically worships money and grind. If your 18-year-old self was sitting across from you right now, same haircut, same chip on his shoulder, same hunger to get out and get paid, what would you tell him?
I'd tell him the paycheck is real and the pride is real, and he shouldn't let anybody shame him for wanting a solid trade. I would never tell him not to go, but I'd tell him this job will not automatically make him a man just because it's difficult. I'd tell him to save money early instead of buying stuff to look established. I'd tell him to treat people back home like part of his future, not background noise while he builds one. I'd tell him to answer calls more. Go to dinner when you can. Don't act like love will still be there in the exact same shape after enough cancellations. And I'd tell him loneliness can wear work boots too. Just because it looks tough doesn't mean it isn't lonely.
That's beautifully put. What do you wish people who romanticize blue-collar work understood? And on the flip side, what do you wish people who look down on it understood?
For the romantic people, I'd say stop flattening hard jobs into content. Not every sunrise on a job site means a guy is fulfilled. Sometimes it means he's cold, underslept, and trying not to think about who he's drifting away from. The toughness is real, but so is the isolation, and it doesn't make you soft to admit that. For the people who look down on it, I'd say this work takes real skill. You're troubleshooting systems, thinking through safety, dealing with weather, height, confined spaces, and pressure. It's not just a dude climbing stuff. There's a lot of precision in it. So both sides miss the truth in different ways. One side glamorizes it, the other side dismisses it. Most of us are just trying to do difficult, necessary work without letting it swallow the rest of who we are.
You sound different now than you did at the start. At the start, I heard a guy carrying a contradiction. Now I hear a guy who has actually named it. The money matters, the work matters. But if the work starts shrinking your life, that has to count too. When you picture the next year, what do you want it to look like specifically?
I want it to look smaller in a good way. I want more ordinary stuff, more dinners I actually make it to, more mornings where I'm not already mentally at work before my feet hit the floor. I want to keep doing wind, at least for now, but I want better boundaries with it. Fewer extra yeses just because my ego likes being useful. I want to be present enough to know what's going on in my family's life without hearing it secondhand 3 days later. And selfishly, I want to figure out who I am when I'm not exhausted. I've spent enough time proving I can grind. I'd like to find out whether I can also stay human.
That last sentence might be the whole episode. Because a lot of people can grind. A lot of people can survive. The harder thing is staying human while the world rewards you for becoming a machine. Before we wrap, I want to go full circle. You started by saying you make 63 grand fixing wind turbines in Iowa, and the loneliness isn't worth it. After everything we've unpacked, is that still the sentence, or has it changed?
I think it's changed a little. I'd say the money is good and loneliness is a real bill even when it doesn't show up on paper. That's probably more accurate. Because it's not that the job gave me nothing. It gave me confidence. It gave me skills. It gave me proof I can handle hard things. It also showed me where I disappear if I'm not paying attention. So I don't regret doing it. But I do regret some of the ways I let it define me. And if I keep going in this field, I want to do it with my eyes open. Not worshiping the paycheck. Not pretending the empty parts don't count. Just honest.
That is a hell of a place to land. Marcus is 23. He fixes wind turbines in Iowa. He makes good money by the standards a lot of young people are chasing. And what his story exposes is something much bigger than one trade. Sometimes the very thing that makes you feel valuable can quietly make you unavailable. Hard work deserves respect. So does honesty about what it costs. Marcus, I appreciate your openness, man. I really do.
Yeah, I appreciate it too. And honestly, saying it out loud helped. I think for a while, I kept acting like I was choosing this life because I was running toward money and opportunity. Some of that was true, but some of it was definitely me running away from slower, scarier stuff, like being needed in a different way or being still long enough to feel what was off. I don't think I'm doing that as blindly now. I've got about 30 days to decide on that promotion path. A year ago, I'd have chased the bigger number. Right now, the thing that feels more grown up is maybe making a little less and actually showing up for my life. That's where I'm at.